Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's January 22nd, 2020 meeting. The first item of business this evening is our citizens' comments. Do we have any?
No comments.
We don't have many citizens tonight.
Well, it's not as cold as it was.
Right,
so
right.
I don't know. Can't blame it on the weather.
Well, you know what this means? We're ahead of schedule, so.
Wait a minute, we started 5 minutes late.
Wow.
Okay, we're back on schedule. So the first item of business is to appoint members of the Carroll Building Committee. And Mr. Springett, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so the building committee, we propose that the Carroll Building Committee membership be comprised of 7 individuals. We're asking the board tonight to appoint 4 who currently serve on the Owner's Project Management Committee. So Dave Billings, Luciana Birdie, Barry Goldman, and Ford Spaulding. And then there are obviously 3 other people
Right.
to get to 7. Samuel Cole, who we've talked to the past couple of weeks, would be a new member to the committee. Terry Sobolewski, who's helped do the analysis for the renovation options for the Carroll Project Committee.
Okay.
And Ruth Townsend, who was really an important contributor as we did the outreach that was necessary to make sure we got the voters out back on October 7th. Ruth, we would need, if we're going to appoint Ruth, we need a waiver of registered voter
Right.
requirement so that she can participate in the building committee. So those are the 7 people that we would like the board to appoint to the building committee.
Okay. So I think just to remind everybody what we've talked about all along and the way we conducted the initial study was this is all about the stakeholders. So there is going to be a lot of input from the various stakeholders. And the building committee is just like the Carroll committee was
Yeah,
the
so we mentioned it,
focus,
when we
right.
talked last week, last meeting, we did mention that we were going to follow the same model.
Right.
So Robin, you're absolutely correct. And I'll read the write-up. So the building committee will also create a non-voting stakeholders group to ensure that residents and other interested parties have a strong voice throughout this project phase and will actively communicate project status with their community groups, solicit community feedback, and participate in all community forums and other building committee information activities. It is absolutely critical
Right.
that we have as much community engagement and involvement as possible.
Well done. And thank the members and the folks who have put their name forward and for all of the people who have expressed an interest in it. I think that's the one thing we've been very lucky so far. We've had lots of community involvement, lots of community interest, and had a great pool of candidates to choose from for all of these committees, and there have been a lot. We've had a lot of search committees. We've had a lot of committees that
I think that's what we do best.
Create committees.
Create committees and
we
staff
could
them.
go on for a very long time into the depth and detail that we've covered.
But we are going to stick to the schedule this evening,
Yes,
so
we
we're not
are.
going to do that.
So would you like a motion, Madam Chair?
I would.
So I move to waive, in this case, in this specific case, the Dover Code registered voter requirement. I move to approve the appointment of the following individuals to the Carroll Building Committee: David Billings, Luciana Birdie, Barry Goldman, Ford Spaulding, Terry Sobolewski, Samuel Cole, and Ruth Townsend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So do we need to be specific to Ruth on that?
That was going to be my question.
specific
Yeah.
Right.
as to who the waiver
Right.
applies to.
Yes.
If you waive, I think you're fine with this motion because you waived it for the overall committee, so it doesn't particularly matter who it is. It covers all 7.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
The next item on our agenda is an appointment, and it is from the Board of Fire Engineers. And the Board of Fire Engineers, their chair, Ford Spalding, is requesting that we, the Board of Selectmen, reappoint Jay Hughes to the Board of Fire Engineers for a term expiring on June 30th, 2022. So that would be 3 years, because I'm assuming this should have been done in 2019. So, discussion, or?
No, she,
All right.
Second that.
Well,
we didn't
then-
make the motion. Did you
Then
make the
I
motion?
move to approve the appointment of Jay Hughes to the Board of Fire Engineers for a 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2022.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now our favorite topic. Warrant article discussion. It's all
Tis the
yours.
season.
Tis the season.
Thank you.
And the warrant officially closed on Thursday, right? Last week?
Right.
Friday.
17th at 1 PM.
At 1 PM. So here's where we ended up. New articles are highlighted in blue. We defined new articles as articles that were not on, or are typically on the warrant, or new that weren't on for last year. There were 3 of the highlights mentioned. There were 3 citizen petitions that made it in on time. One to accept Stagecoach Lane as a public way, and 2 related to the school start time issue. One to appropriate for additional buses for Chickering, and the other to appropriate for a traffic study related to school start times. And we have spoken with the petitioners in both cases on the process moving forward leading up to town meeting.
So, I'm sorry, Chris,
Yes,
the
sir.
ones in blue, are they definite or are they placeholders?
They're placeholders until the warrant goes to print. And so my understanding is that there is still dialogue that is occurring and will occur until we get up to that point. So these things could potentially, some of these may drop off. The
Okay.
Board of Selectmen could choose to drop off Board of Selectmen ones, or some other entity may come back and say, you know what, we've decided not to move
Right.
forward.
Okay,
With
thank you.
respect to the 2 citizen petitions regarding the start time of school, they are in active dialogue with the school committee. But
Oh, that's great.
They understood that, the warrant was closing, and Chris and I had a discussion with them about process. And, basically, we told them the easy part was getting the warrant on the warrant, and then, it was up to them really to get the word out of what they were trying to do and prepare themselves for the open hearing.
And you clarified roles and responsibilities between the school committees and the
And us.
superintendent and the
And-
board of selectmen.
And we did, and they certainly appeared to understand those. We also talked about the risk, so to speak, that there may be a situation where the town approves funds for the additional buses, but the school committee elects not to expend those.
Okay.
And so we did, so they understood all of that, and they seemed to understand that, all the work that had to take place, but they also said that they would continue to talk to be in dialogue with the school.
That's great. So I only have one other question, and it's on line item 34. We say transfer from free cash to reduced tax rate. Should that be reduced tax rate or stabilized?
It's
It would be
always-
to reduce, so
Is that always what it's?
Yeah,
in reviewing prior year warrants, it looks like the community has traditionally done 2 things. One is for all of your appropriation articles, you've just appropriated what you'd like, and then you've had a free cash article after the fact to balance the budget.
Right.
So you've gone in and let's just say of all your appropriations, you've gone over your levy limit by $1 million. You do the math and you plug in $1 million in free cash to bring you within your levy limit. The second article, which might have been new for last year, was an additional question beyond balancing the budget. And it was, do we want to actually reduce the tax rate with one-time funds?
Yeah, but maybe I'm just remembering the discussion around that, because we did talk off and on about
Right.
maybe stabilizing the rate,
But
lowering.
34, that's always been the language
Okay, yeah, it wasn't, not in
as
blue.
far back as I can remember.
But I think, that's leading into finalizing the warrant, that should be a conversation that the board has on, if these should remain. There's a lot of work that is underway with organizing stakeholders to get a sense of what we're going to do with our free cash as it relates to the establishment of reserve policies.
Yeah.
General stabilization, capital stabilization, OPEB. And so it's just a consideration that should be in the back of your minds as we get closer to finalizing this up. The other article that I would just highlight, and this is a dialogue that we'll continue to have, is there's a new placeholder in there, line 16, which is for essentially one-time projects. So in the past, these have typically been their own line item. Like for instance, the technology review, but understanding that there was a broader picture last year. But this is a placeholder if projects come up that we want to fund that are one time that we want to fund with free cash. You can use that there as kind of a catch-all for the discussion at town meeting.
That was a good
One, for
idea.
instance, I'll give you is, as we undertake a space needs assessment, do we want to, does the community want to maybe perhaps set aside some money for potential renovations to the townhouse? This would be that's an example of how this article could be
Yep,
used.
good. All right, so if we're going to stay on it, then I have two questions. Number 27, do you have the background on that? Line 27, rather.
I do. It's not in the packet. It will be distributed, but the Cemetery Commission has recently voted to amend a few small portions of their bylaws. I would characterize them as nothing that is a drastic change, but I'll have those highlights in a full packet for the board.
Okay, thank you. And then 30.
Yes. So this came in on Thursday night.
Under the wire.
No, if it
It
came
looks
in
to
at
be a
12:57 the next day, it would have been under the wire.
Thursday night, though, that's pretty late.
It looks to be a small change, but Mona has, I believe, a request out for more information that we can
Okay.
include for the discussion.
So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And that's usually what we'll do, is as the time progresses and some of these placeholders mature, the sponsors will come in and talk about, or give us material. Because they were just basically scrambling to put placeholders on the warrant.
And they're discussed at open hearing, right?
Yes.
Yep, everything gets discussed at open
Yeah.
hearing. But as you know, a lot of these
Drop
drop
out.
off.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
It's a lot of work and then they drop off.
Yeah.
Keeps us on our toes.
Right,
Well,
right.
the cumulative effect can also go a long way. Things that drop off this year for a
Come
lot
back
of good
like
reasons,
boomerangs.
structural reasons, come back the next year and have a larger platform, oftentimes a better thought out process,
Right.
or a process, as we've learned with the bags, that's acceptable.
Yep.
That actually can be written into a bylaw.
Right.
So, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next item of business is the Board of Selectmen's update. So I did speak to Kevin Ban, and I got an update regarding the rail trail. So the Friends of the Dover Greenway are currently in discussions with Greystone, which is the group that represents the MBTA.
Okay.
And they, they've articulated their value proposition as to why they think
Kevin
the
did to
Friends.
Greystone?
Yeah,
Yes.
why it makes sense for the Friends. And Greystone now understands where we stand. And
Oh, the dynamic.
The dynamic, and they are going to in turn approach the MBTA and have discussions with them. So, Kevin was cautiously optimistic that
Robin, we've been there.
right, that we may, at least the dialogue has begun, but Greystone cautioned Kevin that things do take much longer than expected, and so this may
Again,
take
as
some time.
experience.
As we know.
As
Right,
we know.
but, he was encouraged by
That's terrific. I think
the
that's great.
conversations with Greystone.
Are they going to come in at some point in time and sort of brief?
He says he has nothing to report right now, and I don't disagree with him. He really needs to understand,
Oh,
they need
right,
to have
right.
some dialogue with the
Okay.
MBTA, but they said Mina was helpful to them, and, even though it's been a few steps forward, he feels as though at least the momentum is going in the right direction.
Well, I think it's always good to have the face-to-face.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the second important step.
As you know, what we went through when we first identify the right parties, find the right people, find the right departments. We did have lots of conversation on the logistics of who is who and how the various, how Greystone reports back to the legal team at the MBTA. So that part, it wasn't just the introductions that had to be done, it was more along the lines of these are the roles and responsibilities, so, which takes a while, so progress will be slow.
And then I don't know if anybody has any comments on the projected or the draft upcoming agendas, or if there are any items that you may want to add. Looks like February 6th is a robust agenda.
Yes.
Looked
So we
okay.
may want to add things to the 27th instead, but,
No, I'm good. I mean, things come up, we can.
Do you want me to bring anything from show and tell for ambulance rates and
I
ambulance
think you
abatements?
should, yeah, I think you should.
We'll let that
Get a
go.
driving review.
maybe we could do a show and tell.
Well, so when we get through into February, then we should be sort of, I mean, from a capital budget committee, you should have, that should be pretty much wrapped up, right?
That's almost wrapped up. We're just waiting for the school.
Right,
And there's,
and that would be the same for the operating budget, right?
So, as I receive the pieces of the overall budget, what I'd like to do is I'd like to compile those all into one kind of big financial picture, come back before the board with an update on where we are. We'll have updated assessments, so you'll have
That
kind of a
sounds
full
great.
picture.
Right.
And then at that time, we could have a further dialogue if the board so chooses on the board's particular budgets. But again, you'll have the full financial picture in front of you to
So
help
maybe
with
that's
that
something,
dialogue.
maybe that's something we could
right.
pencil in on the 27th. You think that's
Yeah,
reasonable? You
yeah,
think
we
that's
can
reasonable?
throw it on there and work toward it. Yep,
Right.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's still, the capital budget process, there's still items that are being vetted, but
Yeah.
it's-
but it must, generally speaking, if I remember right, it generally wraps up toward the end of
Mhm.
February.
The hope.
Well, be optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And our next item is town administrator updates.
Thank you. So for the Technology Advisory Board, two things to highlight. One, we've been working on developing out a scope of work with a vendor for a new website. was relayed to us that the vendor picked up quite a few clients toward the end of the calendar year, and both their administrative processes and finalizing scopes of work has been delayed, as well as project implementation at the tail end. But I did speak with the vendor and emphasized the need and the desire for us to move forward. And they've conveyed to me that we can likely take a hybrid approach, which is something I'd recommend. It's to stand up a new homepage, as well as some of the most visited pages, the agenda center, meeting minutes and documents, as well as the calendar, so we can get that up immediately, and then start to develop your sub-pages about your departments and, you know, about Dover and some of the other pages that are less visited. And we'll be able to run both sites in parallel, the new one and the existing one. So if someone uses the new one, you know, goes and sets an agenda and says, hey, I'd like to know who's on the Board of Selectmen, they hit that page, they just be redirected to our existing one until we fully roll over. And I think, you know, that makes a lot of sense rather than waiting, let's say, what could potentially be, you know, upwards of 8 months. At least we'll get something out there and we'll get some progress made. So that's that piece. And the second
Will it be
is,
speedier?
can they?
Yeah,
We can encourage speediness.
because that's my biggest complaint.
So it'll get, actually, there's
You
sort
can
of a
go
silver-
brush your teeth and then the page comes
No,
back up.
wait a minute. Now, I don't know if this is right, wrong, or different, but I timed the homepage load in 3 seconds the last couple of times I got on the website. And I also
All
timed.
right, I'll have
I
to,
also timed the load to the calendar at 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And I sent a note to Greg Cajon saying, you know, were the changes made?
Yeah.
Because I'm getting, which compared to 20 seconds
Yeah.
is, so he said he didn't know, and I was going to ask you if the vendor had made the changes to different machines.
Yeah, so the present platform that hosts our current website has switched our, essentially the server that our website lives on, to a more robust and quicker server. They ran into a couple of hiccups. The one that our website was on was a bit outdated.
This is from the 19th century.
but it was a computer.
Perhaps it I'm not sure, it might have been a mainframe. But I heard from our IT department at the end of last week that the migration had occurred and that people should experience quicker uptime. I have myself, and I'm happy to hear that you have as well. So we'll continue to monitor it to make sure that that's the case.
Yeah, I didn't know, so
I
when
will
Greg didn't know
report
it.
next
was-
week.
Kate, I'm going on the record to state publicly that I will never time any loading of any pages under any circumstances of anything, unless somebody puts a gun to my head and says time it.
So wait a minute, when you.
Never will you find me commenting on what time it takes to load a page.
So when I
Just
used to
saying.
get, when I
Just
used to
saying.
hit the town website, I'd go to the refrigerator and make a sandwich,
my
and then come
God.
back, and it was still not loading. When it actually loaded in 3 seconds, it caught my attention. And then I had to try, then I literally timed the calendar to see if it was 3 seconds.
That's way too much
Because it blew me
information.
away.
Oh, my God.
No more sandwiches.
Way too.
So he's lost weight.
He might have lost his mind. Oh, my God.
That's a big assumption that I had one bit.
I will never do that under any circumstances.
Oh, I'm gonna make you do it. You're showing me pictures of your car.
Truck.
Sorry, somebody get control.
Yeah.
Mrs. Hunter,
Very,
please.
very important matter.
Wow. Wow.
The other piece on
Okay.
the tab that I just wanted to highlight was based on our meeting last week. You know, as we undertake the website project, the infrastructure updates, bring on board a project manager to help with general workflow as it relates to document sharing and retention. The tab is going to undertake a kind of a strategic planning process for overall goals as it relates to IT, and from that will really help us develop out what FY21 looks like and beyond, things that
yeah.
we should start to tackle. So that'll be a process that we'll undertake, I imagine, for the next few weeks and maybe months as the group gets together. On the Carroll Community Center, aside from the establishment of the building committee this evening, the RFQ for OPM services is out. We received over 30 requests so far.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
And that'll close on February 12th. Those are just people asking for it.
That's okay. I mean, that's just a big number.
What they'll bid. Yep. And then on Hale, the Hale group met on a holiday on Monday evening. I didn't have the calendar option or the holiday option on my calendar checked off, so I had forgotten that it was a holiday, but we were all still able to get in and meet.
That's
And
bad.
yeah, the group spent the time with the Hale folks reviewing two recent appraisals that Hale has had to get a sense on what kind of the value of the property is, so to speak. So we'll be meeting, the Hale Task Force will be meeting this coming week to dialogue internally about what next steps look like on a recommendation to the board. Nothing is set in stone. My sense is that it'll very much be a kind of two-step process. One is, maybe an educational opportunity at this town meeting and continue to do work to understand what kind of opportunity this presents the community to line up potentially for the next annual town meeting. So that's what they're looking at this point, but we'll have more after we meet next week. And then a few general updates that I just wanted to provide the board. Based on this conversation we had with Select on the solar opportunity at the Public Works Garage, staff has been working on a few fronts. One is working with council to vet the actual document agreements that we could potentially pursue. The other is we're gonna, working with Barry Goldman as chair of the Capital Budget Committee and his experience with green energy projects, have him kind of join the group to both vet this and potentially move this forward. And then the third piece that I really wanted to mention was I got in contact with with a consultant who does a lot of this work in the New England region, and she has done work, or she did work on the solar project over at the transfer station. And for a relatively low dollar amount, a few $1,000s, she can both oversee this entire process for us, but also really vet out both the proposal from the company, establish out a potential pilot agreement, and I think that's a great value. So I will likely pursue that direction, just given the aggressive timeline that we face lining up for this year's annual town meeting.
So she was the consultant that we used for the Blue Wave project. Yeah, she's fantastic. And actually last year, when we were looking to see if solar was a viable option on the Protective Agencies building, we contacted her again, and she helped us out. She's a really great resource.
Super.
Yeah.
So I just want to come back to one thing that slipped my mind when we were talking about it. When we moved to a bifurcated sort of approach to the website, should we consider, or can we consider, or should I consider the first effort as a pilot, that we would get to learn the intricacies of the system and be able to get some sort of hands-on in depth with it?
The first rollout?
Well, we talked about splitting it so that the homepage and the...
Yeah, that was so that we can get something.
But, I mean, will it give us that opportunity, or is it not really?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But it'll provide some additional time for the group to really build this out in a way that once the full site goes on board, there's not much additional progress after the fact that needs to be done. You'll have a fully renovated and robust website.
Okay.
And it sort of gives you a sense of things to come.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And and since the links will be there, people will be trained to go to those links to get the information. Just when the rest is up and running, it will be a nicer interface.
I was looking for a silver lining to the...
Well, I think this is a silver lining. We get it up faster. It's just not the whole thing.
our financial policies work will really kick off in earnest this Wednesday with a stakeholder group made up of the Board of Selectmen, the Warrant Committee, Capital Budget Committee, and the School Committee. That initial kickoff is going to focus on kind of the core reserve policies that the town consider. Really, again, this question around, our free cash balance and what does the community want to do with it, both presently as well as free cash moving forward as we generate it. So things about general stabilization, capital stabilization, land use, and the Collins Center is going to help facilitate that dialogue and discussion. So the chairwoman's a member on the select board, and I'm hearing back from the other stakeholder groups on.
Does she have any financial background?
I believe she does.
Does she? You sure? Do you?
Just a little.
Just a little.
And I'll thank Selectman Jeffries and the team who did a lot of great work last year. I took all that information, the presentations, and sent that over so that they have that, so that they kind of have a head start as to here's what the community's already
Yeah.
done and some areas that they've already.
There was a fair amount of work done.
Yeah. Town will, treasurer, also assessors, essentially Amy, Jerry, and I will get together with the free cash certification, make sure everything that we assumed last year for that group will be so the continuity of the message will be the same. And I think the Collins Center combined with everything else is just utilizing that resource is just a great idea. It gives it a lot of formality. It's the question that we'd face year after year is, these are your numbers. Yeah, these are our numbers. And now with the Collins Center, somebody else who will come back to verify, give you a little bit more structure and formality to it. So it's a great idea.
We'll have best practices from other communities, from other organizations like the GFOA. I think it'll be a good exercise.
Yeah, it's really helpful to look outside so that people understand what the world
How
looks
we
like.
compare to the rest of the world.
How do we compare? Yeah, it's really important.
Just two other quick things. The municipal project manager position closed. The interview process will be very similar to the assistant interview process in terms of a panel style interview process. So for an initial interview, we're assessing candidates now, and we'll likely start to bring folks in 2 weeks for an initial round. And then we've been working, Selectman Springett and I have been working on developing a process on engaging the TAB in the process as well, given that this position will really help both support the TAB as well as a lot of these modernization efforts for the next few years.
How many candidates did we get?
What was it, a little over 20, Kate?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's great.
And then lastly, staff have been working diligently on finalizing out proposals for some of the reorganization opportunities that we're looking at. And so our next steps are to share those with some of the independently elected entities who are impacted to get their feedback. And then my plan was to come to the board after the fact with those on here's the plan or here's a potential opportunity moving forward.
And I can't remember because it's been so much fun since the beginning of the year. Did we mention the DOR work kicked off?
I think we did, yeah.
I think we did last time. Oh, so Chris and I met with the DOR. It was a kickoff meeting. I thought it went really well.
How many people?
Kate was with us. There was supposed to be 3, but one couldn't make it. So there were 2 of them, and I thought it was a good meeting. We sort of went over what the catalyst was to bring them in, what we were looking to get out of the review. We talked about how we, had staff buy-in. We were looking for best practices. We were looking to prioritize. And they actually commended us for having staff buy-in. They said sometimes they go and the first
Yeah.
any
Is it
staff
surprise?
member has ever heard of them coming in is them introducing themselves. And then, and then the staff members are concerned about, well, is this because I'm not doing my job? Is this because they're going to replace me? So they did commend us for the approach we have taken, and so I'm looking forward to the report. They certainly,
How long?
they have done this in a lot of communities. So again, it will be some good benchmarks for us.
Yes. About how long does this take?
I'd anticipate probably about 3 months.
Right,
They're
that's what she
still
said.
gathering data. They'll be back on site next week to meet with some additional staff. But it'll give us a nice project to pick up in earnest in the summer, which isn't necessarily a bad time to build out some of our internal
Good.
practices here.
Had you done one of these before, Kate?
No, my first time.
Right. I know you have, right?
Sounds like a
Chris?
busy second half of the year.
Yes.
Right. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and I actually it flew by. I was late for my other meeting because we spent more time talking. I just really enjoyed it.
That's all I have for updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, our favorite part of the meeting, the consent agendas. So in our consent agenda is the acceptance of the Mass DEP Protection Sustainable Material Recovery Program Grant Award, and then approval of special licenses for February 8th. There are 2 events, the 13th, the 14th, March 20th, and April 4th.
So the amount of the grant money is like $13,500 to go to offset some costs that we incur?
Correct.
Right.
That's pretty terrific.
Yep. Specifically for mattress removal and disposal.
Again, the recycling committee, time and time again, has really been very proactive in getting grants.
I was talking to, I'm sorry.
And I'm not sure if people saw, there was an article in the Globe, I think it was
few weeks
this
ago,
past
yeah.
weekend or 2 weekends ago, about the issues in Western Mass that they're having with recycling and it becoming really expensive. And what we did learn from that is what makes us different is that we're not single source recycling. We
right.
actually sort the recycling, and there continues to be a market for sorting the recycling. So Wellesley, who picks up a lot of our recyclables, is not having an issue selling,
Oh, okay.
right, or finding a home for them. So that was good news.
And the program that was started
The food scraps
has
program, right,
been phenomenally
right,
successful.
right.
Would you like to recognize the celebrity that we have in the House with the letter that was received from the governor? Address
You can
to
do
the
the
celebrity.
honors, right.
Mr. Valente, the celebrity in the House. The governor sent us a letter dated November 15th, thanking you in the town of Dover. To notify the town of Dover has been awarded the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant, aforementioned. Thank you very, very much.
He got a similar letter from the DEP, so congratulating him, right.
All I know is the cost of a selfie's gone up.
So the governor thanks you and we thank you very much.
Great news. That's great.
Right. So the next item of business and last item of business is, we're going to poll to go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A6, to discuss the lease of real property at 2 Dedham Street. And so I move that the board enter into executive session, not to return to open session, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease of value of real property at 2 Dedham Street. Further, as chairman, I declare that an open meeting discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. I'm going to take a roll call to enter into executive session.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you.